Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another FIFA 22 video where today I'm going to be sharing with you a mystery formation that you would not expect that saved my weekend and could possibly save your weekends in the future. Now, some background on this before we start. I started 0-3 in champs, which I have never done. I had a shocking start. To be fair, I got some pretty unlucky matchmaking. I came up against 3 exceptional FIFA players that had, 3 or 4 icons in each of their teams. So, just some insane players. But I started 0-3, so I was looking in real bad shape. Now, we ended up finishing 14-6, which was pretty good in the end. But we didn't do it with a formation that you may have heard. 4-2-2, 4-2-3-1, any formation like that. We actually did it and saved it with a 5-2-1-2. Now, this might seem very odd. Why did I go for a 5-2-1-2? What led me to go for this formation? Now, one of the things that I came across and that I know just in general about my own game is I am a weak defender. The weakest part of my game is defending. I've never been a great defender. I've always been a little bit too aggressive. Even when I really try, I've always been a little bit too aggressive. So I went for a 5-back because I wanted to have the extra centre-back. So if I, let's say, dragged Gomez out, I would still have essentially a back 4. So I would still kind of have that solidarity, even if I had the occasional moment where I drag a defender out of position. And this massively changed my weekend. I actually started scoring more goals. I conceded less, just generally played a hell of a lot better. So recovered from 0-3 to 14-6 in the end, which still was a little bit disappointing for me personally by my own standards. But to recover from 0-3 to that point is exceptional. Now, you probably want to know what custom tactics and instructions did we use for this 5-2-1-2. Now, you can see the team itself is not the most amazing team. There's some very good players in there, but definitely that team could be improved, and we will hopefully be improving it as the weeks and months go on. So without further ado, I want to go into the instructions first. Now, the goalkeeper, Donnarumma, got on comes for crosses and sweep keeper. I was fortunate enough to get Donnarumma as an untradeable card, which is very good because I think he's expensive at the moment. But Donnarumma, big goalkeeper. Now, generally, the big goalkeepers I've found, the likes of Donnarumma, Courtois, Mendy, Alisson also seems to be a very good keeper this year. The real big goalkeepers seem to be the best ones. I think that's because obviously they have the biggest wingspan. They can really sort of get to the corners, whether that be for finesse shots, and they seem to be very tough to beat. But Donnarumma comes for crosses and sweep keeper is the way we go. Now, of course, all of the centre-backs are going to be on stay back while attacking, just the standard stuff. But the full-backs, Hakimi and Robertson, both I played with them on balanced. Now, I played with them on balance because I wanted to have my fullbacks going forwards. Even though I'd struggled a little bit defensively, the main issue actually to begin with was offensively. I was struggling to score goals or struggling to create chances. So I thought, I'm going to go with the back 5, but I'm going to send my fullbacks going forwards, and I'm going to see if I can just get an extra couple of bodies going forwards. It's just going to give me some more passes. And even though these guys were going forwards a lot, especially Hakimi, I can see why everyone loves him. He's absolutely sensational. But he was brilliant, as well as Andy Robertson. But those guys bombing up the wings, not necessarily crossing the ball, but just getting up the wings more than anything. They didn't really get too many assists. They didn't even use them to necessarily sort of cut back passes and stuff. So they didn't really get into those positions. It was just to have an extra body a little bit higher up the pitch, just to make sort of having possession. For me, I like to have lots of possession, as you guys know. And it's just allowed me to have more control of the games, which allowed my defense to kind of be a bit more solid because I had more of the ball. But having these guys on balance really worked. Now, it did make this formation quite offensive, and it was definitely could be a little bit open at times. But I wanted it to be a bit more attacking, and it worked perfectly because of the score we ended up with. Now, the two midfielders, Fabinho and Paul Pogba, we've got them both on stay back while attacking. However, you may want to change off of this because when we get into our tactics, you might see why. But stay back while attacking may not be the best option because of the way that our tactics are set up. So we have these guys on stay back while attacking, edge of the box and cover centre. Bernardo Silva is on get into the box and free roam. The get into the box wasn't too important for Bernardo Silva because he didn't actually get too many goals for me, but the free roam was super important because not necessarily did he always drift around in the final third. He got back and helped out defensively, which made me a little bit more solid defensively. I did find him sometimes when Pogba was out of position. Bernardo Silva dropped in there and did a good job until Pogba could get back, or maybe the fullback Hakimi was out. So he didn't just free roam in the final third. He actually free roamed just generally all over the pitch and sort of plugged gaps really well. Of course, Vardy and Aubameyang both on stay central, getting behind, obviously want to utilise their place. So they are the instructions. Now, the main four positions, the 2 fullbacks, the 2 midfielders. They're the ones that you need to get right. That's kind of what can make or break this formation. As you can see, I decided to go for this in a more attacking way rather than a more defensive way. Now, in terms of the tactics, these were the tactics that I settled on. And I definitely will be trying to tweak these a little bit, because having now played the full weekend with them, they were sensational and they obviously saved my weekend league. But I will be tweaking these ever so slightly, I think, as I go forwards. Now, in terms of defensive style, I definitely did not want to play on a press. Whilst I think a press could work in this formation because it's obviously the back 5, but it maybe couldn't work because obviously you're starting from quite a low block and obviously you don't have any real width. So outballs could be very, very easy. So I wouldn't recommend playing on a press. Now, depth 60, again, because I didn't want to go super, super high, because obviously I was having a little bit of trouble with conceding goals, but I was also having a little bit of trouble scoring goals and just really doing a bit of both. So I decided to go for around about 60. Seemed to work very, very well, even though our fullbacks were going forwards. Having 3 centre-backs, and especially with the 3 centre-backs, having 3 fast centre-backs. Unfortunately, it's the way you kind of have to go with fast centre-backs. Obviously, we've got Gomez, Van Dijk and Marquinhos, so 3 very quick centre-backs. If you're doing that, you can afford to play a little bit of a high depth, and then having the quick fullbacks such as Hakimi when he can get back in position really, really help there. Slow build-up is, of course, the way I like to play. I like to play with that possession, especially in my final third, you know. And another thing that's really, really important for this formation, if you are going to try this formation out, you really got to be looking for the switch balls all the time. The switch passes are always on, and that's because we play on 85 width. Now, this is definitely something that I want to tweak with. I do want to try it on 100 width, because I think this was one of the things that made this formation so good, was because these guys were so wide, especially the fullbacks. It meant that the switch of play was on basically all the time. Unless my opponent pressed me, one of the fullbacks was in 20 or 30 yards of space all the time. So I do want to try a little bit wider. The downside to this was that the midfield was quite open. Obviously, the wider your offense is, and the wider, the more stretched your fullbacks are, get them on the byline, it does mean your midfield is a bit more open, so people can play through you quite easily. So that's one of the things that is there to be mindful of. So I didn't want to try it with too narrow, because my intention was to use the fullbacks as part of the attacking third. So that's why I went for a super wide width. So I do want to try it even wider. I do want to try it narrower, and we'll see which one is best going forwards. Now, the thing that, in my opinion, that can make or break this formation was the direct passing. Now, this was very, very good, but also it was a little bit annoying at times. Now, one of the reasons why it was very, very good is because it meant my players were always making runs in behind, which is brilliant, especially if you've got fast players, and especially if you obviously want to get on the end of those passes and whatnot. It was very, very good. Where it was quite annoying, and this is where the issue can come in with the 2 midfielders on stay back while attacking, because tactics override instructions. So when we have them on direct passing, the midfielders, when we get into the attacking third, they will ignore the stay back while attacking tactic or instruction that you've set, and they'll run in behind. And sometimes your players will be on the shoulder, constantly running in behind, running in behind, running in behind. And obviously, when your opponent does intercept passes, as they do, that then can lead to counterattacks. But because your 2 midfielders are on stay back while attacking, because you've got direct passing on, they go forward. So sometimes that was kind of a bit of an issue. However, when I tried on balanced, there wasn't enough penetration. So it's kind of a bit of a tricky one. You kind of have to go for one or the other. If you go for the direct passing, you get lots of runs in behind, which is brilliant, but you'll be left open for counters. If you go for balanced, you know, it's very easy for your opponent to just sort of control one player and just sort of shift from side to side, let the AI do all the defending, but you won't get countered. So you kind of have to pick your poison a little bit. I decided to go for the direct passing. I thought, you know what? I'd rather score 6 goals and concede 4 than just sort of struggle in a game. So I went for the direct passing route, and it worked out very, very well. But definitely, these were the tactics that I used for this 5-2-1-2, and it was so much fun to use. I had probably the most fun I've had all year playing FIFA, and obviously to recover our weekend league. Now, we'll be tweaking these tactics, so probably in the future, maybe in 4 or 5 weeks, we may do an update on this formation, and obviously, hopefully, we'll have some updated and tweaked tactics to kind of like sweeten it and make this formation even better. But I absolutely love this formation. So if you are ever struggling, this is definitely a formation that managed to save my weekend league. So hopefully maybe in the future it can do the same for you. But if you did enjoy the video, do drop a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe as well if you are new to the channel. Let us know down in the comment section if there are any other videos you'd like us to do. But that's all for today, guys. Have an awesome day. I'm out.